Mommy, mommy, see, it's beautiful. Mommy, see, that auntie's ear. It's beautiful. Mrs. James sat down, ruminating painfully on how she failed to remember the things that mattered to her daughter right from childhood. She shed tears at the realization of what her daughter had become. A picture no parent would be proud to have. Miss James was a divorcee who has 3 children. 2 were in the higher institution and her last child, Ibidu, was in the secondary school. Miss James had a messy divorce. Since then, her husband hadn't extended his financial duty towards his children. It has been Miss James sponsoring her children in school. She works as a nurse in a government hospital. She was a penny-wise woman, a quality that helped her build a house of hers early in life. However, she took it a notch higher when she lost her marriage and her ex-husband's financial support. Determined to make a point that she could take care of her children, she ensured her children had the basic things: food, clothing, shelter, and education. Her first 2 children are sons and are in the private university. Ibidu is the last born and she is in SS2. Her parents divorced when she was in GSS3. Ibidu was walking past a restaurant one day, and when she passed by, the scintillating aroma of their dishes grabbed her attention. It then occurred to her that since the divorce, she hasn't eaten out. She hasn't eaten something as least as minced pie. Whenever she asked her mother for money to indulge in her cravings, most often than not, she doesn't give it to her. Miss James would go on to reel out how she has been the only one providing school fees, electricity bill, food, etc. And to crown it all, she reminds her daughter of how she has 2 medical students in a private university and it's sucking her dry. When she says this, whatever craving it was that took Ibidu to her dies off. Ibidu is on a full-time scholarship. She joined this new school of hers a year ago as a scholarship student. One of her dad's friends, who had pity on her mother due to her divorce, had conducted an exam for her to see if she was worthy of his investment. Ibidu aced the exam. The school has more rich children than her former school. She could never have been able to afford the school if not for the scholarship. Her mother had been so happy during the week she got the scholarship. Gave her an extra piece of meat every time she ate that week. Since then, Ibidu has had to live with the barest minimum. Her mother feeds her, but she doesn't let her indulge in any extras, no matter how sensible it might sound. She doesn't give her money to school to buy things for herself. She claims she eats in the morning, and she even dishes food for her as lunch. What do you need money for? James would ask. Ibidu would squeeze her face. Mom, sometimes I want a change of taste. I want to eat other things than rice, beans, yam. I want to eat chocolate and... Oh, are you saying my food has been boring? You are not even grateful that you have rice to eat. Do you know how much those things cost in the market now? You don't know. All you do is eat. Don't worry, you will understand better when it gets to your turn to be a parent, said Miss James. Ibidu would walk out of her presence to go and sulk somewhere. For the past 2 years, she hasn't eaten biscuits, chocolate or ice cream, except the ones she was able to get from her friends, which she does minimally because of self-respect. Her saving grace would have been times visitors gave her money, but her mother would take it with the promise that she would buy her something with it. Most times she doesn't fulfill her promise. If the tantrums from Ibidu get too much, she pacifies her with a second-hand dress, bought for her for a price beneath the amount she was given. Can you pay for all that I have done for you? Don't ask me for that money again. You are beginning to annoy me, Miss James would say, frowning her face. Ibidun was the only girl in her class on low cut. Her mother has refused to spare money for her to have these things. Ibidun would sit in a corner of her room most times and cry. Unfortunately, both of them lived alone in a flat. Their extended family members are overseas and their numbers are not easily reachable. She had wanted to talk to them to help them advise her mother. Her brothers were worse. Whenever she reported her mother to them, they would accuse her of being an ungrateful child. They would remind her how their mother has been the only one taking care of the three of them and how the two of them are studying medicine, a very financially draining course in a private university. Bidun always agrees with their point when they reel them out, but something always tells her that she's being cheated. Her mother doesn't pay school fees on her behalf anymore as she is on scholarship. One would think she would compensate for that by taking care of her in other areas, but no. As long as I am providing your basic needs for you, I am doing well, Miss James would say. Unfortunately, she wasn't like that with her sons. She sent them extras aside money for book and academic purposes. According to her, they need to be happy in order to study well. Medicine isn't easy, she would tell Ibidun while transferring money to them. Ibidun loves beautiful things, sights and appearances, a quality that had been strong in her since childhood. Many of the friends she made were initiated through her many times. Ibidun would walk up to strangers and tell them something beautiful about them. You are so beautiful and you have a great dress sense. The person listening would melt, and before she know it, they will strike up a conversation and become friends. She commends her friends daily. Someone said if she were a man, only God knows how many ladies he would have taken to bed. She has an unending wall of words of affirmation in her. Sadly, she hardly receives the same gesture. Aside her natural beauty, day in, day out, month in, month out, there is nothing new about her look or what she brings to school or the clothes she wears or something. So there is hardly something to celebrate. Her friends, being from rich homes, add different new things almost every day. It might be a new jewelry, a new toy, new sunglasses, etc. Ibidun will stay around them, admiring them. Miss James also had another silly policy of do not take any gift from any student. You are not a less privileged person. Don't let them look down on you, she would say. So many times her friends wanted to give her gifts, she would reject them. After many trials, they stopped. Ibidun can be described as an excellent gift from God. How she combines beauty, brain and character with ease needs to be studied. She obeys her mother even when she isn't looking. However, because she loved many of the beautiful things she saw but didn't get to experience them, she started a strange habit, the act of fantasy. She would sit down during break time and imagine herself enjoying the beautiful things of life. She would imagine herself with a new hairdo. She had always wanted to know what she would look like with a hairdo, but she hasn't been able to get that privilege. She would imagine herself eating in an expensive restaurant and many other things. At first, it took just a little of her time. Soon, she started spending her entire break time in an isolated place, fantasizing and smiling. Her friends would look for her, and that would interrupt the process. However, she started going to very secluded parts of the school to do her thing, as she was tired of seeing them show off their latest collections every break time, and she has nothing to show. She also started sleeping more at home. Most times, she spends the evening alone in the big flat, as her mother would be at work. There was no subscription on the DSTV. No form of entertainment. All she does is read her books and cook before her mother gets home. Nowadays, all she does is sleep. She would eat lunch, put food on fire, and tell herself she would sleep a little. 2 hours later, her mom would wake her up by tapping her vigorously after running to the kitchen to bring down the burning food. Their house almost got burnt one day. Miss James would shout at her and scold her and let her eat cassava flakes to bed on such days. You see how you have wasted this food? I don't owe you dinner tonight, she would say. Ibidun devised another strategy. She would get home, rush the food preparation process, then go to bed to enjoy an uninterrupted fantasy session. She no longer reads her books. Her performance in school began to drop. Her mother didn't get to know until the end of the term because she doesn't have time to check her notes and her script. By this time, it was too late, as she was no longer eligible by virtue of her results to continue enjoying the scholarship. Her husband's friend was out of the country and the son was the one managing the school. He had strict standards, so begging him isn't an option. Hence, Miss James had to start paying school fees. She paid the school fees for one term before she decided she couldn't cope. During that term, Ibidun's nose smelt her anus many times. Many times, her mother would rain insults on her, telling her how she had become so useless. Ibidun lost her zeal for academic prowess. Her grades dropped and flopped badly. Soon, her mother withdrew her from the school. Being a woman of standard, she wanted her daughter to attend the best government school in town since she couldn't afford a private school. She trusted that her daughter would ace the exams. The results came out and her daughter couldn't meet up with the cutoff mark. This heightened her disappointment in Ibidun. Public school exam, for God's sake. You failed? She screamed at Ibidun, who looked unconcerned. They started considering a lesser school, which Ibidun didn't like. It was like falling from grass to grace. A friend of ours in her former school, SS3 boy, had stumbled on her one day on the road and they hugged each other. Charles took her to a cool spot, and after he got to know about Ibidun's plight, he told her he could help get her into the public school of her choice. Ibidun was happy and she sat up to listen. He went on telling her about how he would help talk to his father to pull some strings. Come to my house every evening for updates, he said, as he gave her his house address. Afterwards, he bought her food, small chops and drinks, the type that Ibidun hasn't eaten for a long time. She ate to her heart's delight. For the next 3 weeks, she went to Charles's house. Charles is the son of a single father, and his father is always out of town. Charles practically owns the house when his dad isn't around. He hosts Ibidun well whenever she comes, ranging from food to enjoying a well-scented environment. Your house always smells nice, she would say. She got to watch various channels on DSTV. Even after Charles told her that the admission is being worked on, she still continued going there uninvited. Miss James was hardly ever at home. She leaves the house early in the morning and gets home late at night. She runs a fabric business, her size being a nurse, so she had no idea that her daughter was spending the bulk of her days with a strange boy. It was the long vacation period, and she had enrolled her to a summer lesson center close to the house. They close by 1 p.m. and she goes from there to Charles's house. Soon, Ibidun got pregnant. Charles has always had eyes on her since they were in school together. He had admired her natural beauty, and his gut feeling told him she must be a virgin. While being mesmerized by the comfort of his house, Ibidun had lost guard and fallen for him. Ibidun came to her senses after the act. She ran home and took a bath, trying to wash off her sins. She couldn't bring herself to tell anyone, as she didn't want to be judged. Few weeks later, she was sick and had gone to a hospital where she was confirmed pregnant. She was devastated. She didn't know what to do. She didn't even have money for abortion, as she was so sure she didn't want to keep the child. She decided to tell Charles about it. Charles was happy to know she was contemplating abortion. He told her to come back some days after and he would prepare the money. Meanwhile, at the hospital where Ibidun had been confirmed pregnant, one of the nurses knew her mother. She saw the resemblance as soon as she came in. She wasn't the one that attended to her, but she had found out why she was there from the nurse that attended to her. She grabbed her phone and called Miss James. Ibidun Omolola James, is that not your daughter's name? She had asked over the phone. Surprised, Miss James responded, yes. The nurse went on to spill the details. Miss James ran out of her shop to her house. She got home and realized her daughter wasn't at home. Where could she be? Her belief all the while had been her daughter goes nowhere else except summer lesson and she goes back home. She checked the neighborhood and didn't see her. A neighbor told her that she might have gone where she used to go. The statement shocked her. She asked the woman further questions and she got to know Ibidun has been going out and coming in late every single day. She picked her bag and went to her nurse friend. They put heads together and they concluded that it's possible Ibidun is contemplating an abortion. Miss James burst into tears. Her friend pacified her and told her to go home and wait for her, since she had no idea where she could be. She went back home and stayed, waiting till night. Ibidun came in at night, right before the time she knew her mother always returned. She looked exhausted from the evacuation. Immediately her mother saw her. She knew she just had one. As a health practitioner, she saw the signs. She rushed at her and started shaking her vigorously. You finished me. You have. Ibidun collapsed. She was pronounced dead at the hospital. Miss James bit her lips in deep regret.